Hey, Goddess Garden Book Club family. It's 11 Goddess, and welcome to Goddess Garden Book Club and Chat. This episode is brought to you by the Goddess Garden Book Chat Squad, a cultivated content experience, leveling up some exciting features that I brought to us for our whole new season of great work. Enjoy the beautifully crafted visuals that keep you entertained while you listen to a selection from the garden that has been read, selected for discussion, and brought to you as a poignant review. Up next, please enjoy our deep dive into Death with Interruptions by José Saramago. The translator for this book is Margaret Jull Costa, and it's narrated by Paul Bamer. In written form, the book is 238 pages, and it was published in January of 2005. I picked this book because we all, in many ways, sort of toy with the fact of what death really means. This book puts a whole new spin on it. So let's talk about it. After you hear the deep dive from the squad, you'll meet with me on the other side and get my perspective. So let's get started.
Mis amigos, let me take you on a journey through the pages of Death with Interruptions, a masterpiece penned by the Portuguese Nobel laureate José Saramago, translated with exquisite grace by Margaret Jull Costa, and narrated with such velvety elegance by Paul Baumer. Oh, this book, mi gente! This is not just a novel. This is an exploration of life, death, and all the mysteries in between. So sit back, relax, and join me as we unravel this story that has captivated readers and critics alike. Vamos, no hay prisa. Let's savor every moment. José Saramago, a man of humble origins, was born in Azinhaga, a small village in Portugal. He lived through difficult times, working as a mechanic before eventually rising to international acclaim as a writer. In 1998, Saramago was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature, becoming the first Portuguese language author to win the honor. This novel was shortlisted for several international awards and it garnered widespread praise, particularly for its audacious premise and philosophical insights. Saramago's writing is, como se dice, timeless, blending wit and a heavy dose of irony with dark and reflective musings about life and death. Imagine, mis amigos, a world where one day death simply stops, not just for a moment, but for an indefinite period. People stop dying, and at first you might think this is cause for celebration. No more funerals, no more heartache, no more adios para siempre. How wonderful, right? Pero, think again. Saramago paints a picture of a society slowly unraveling under the weight of immortality. Hospitals overflow with patients who should have died but are kept in a state of suffering, too injured or sick to recover, but unable to pass on. The government, the church, insurance companies, everyone is thrown into chaos. You see, death plays a role far more important than we ever realize, and Saramago's tale forces us to confront this reality. This idea, mis amigos, touches something deep within our cultures. In Mexico, for example, we have Dia de los Muertos, a day to honor the dead, not to fear them. We celebrate that death is part of life's cycle, entiendes? The very concept of death stopping would shake the foundations of a belief system that sees death as a transition, a journey. But in this novel, Saramago asks us to consider, what happens when that journey is interrupted? Now let me introduce you to a very special character in this story, La Muerte herself. About halfway through the novel, Death, who is personified as a woman, of course, a woman, who else but a woman could manage something so intricate and delicate as life and death, sends a letter to the government and she explains the suspension of death. Then, meet nameless Celeste. Amigos, this man represents so much. Through this man, we see a tender and surprising side of death. No spoilers, I promise, but their relationship takes us to unexpected, even beautiful places. Saramago uses his characters and plot to address deeper societal and cultural issues. In Portugal, as in many parts of the world, The Catholic Church holds significant sway over public life. One of the major institutions affected by the cessation of death is, of course, the Church. If no one dies, there's no resurrection, no afterlife. This turns the Church's teachings on their head. In a way, this novel is a critique of the control that religious and political institutions hold over life and death. There's a parallel here with Latin American culture too, particularly with our ideas of death and the afterlife. Saramago's choice to personify death as a woman echoes the feminine symbolism of death in various cultures. La Catrina, for example, in Mexico's Dia de los Muertos. We don't fear death. We accept it as a part of life. The novel's exploration of death as a sentient, almost human force is deeply resonant for those of us who come from cultures where the dead are honored, remembered, and even celebrated. And don't forget, mis amigos, that the very structure of Saramago's prose is almost like life itself. Long, winding sentences, no quotation marks, and sparse punctuation. It's a challenge, see, but also a reward. His style mirrors the complexity of the world he's describing. It's chaotic at times, but it's also beautiful, poetic, and, above all, deeply human. This book challenges your ideas of life, death, and the systems we build around them. Saramago's wit and wisdom shine through every page, and the translation by Margaret Jull Costa preserves the beauty and complexity of his language. The novel isn't just about death. It's about what it means to live, to fear, to hope, and to love. Saramago reminds us that, ultimately, death is part of life's rhythm. Without it, the song falters. So remember this, mis amigos. We live, we love, we die, and in the end, maybe that's enough. Gracias, and until next time, my friends. Death may come for us all, but today, we live.
I want to share my personal perspective about the importance of this book and that I missed it the first time I read it. I purchased it and added it to my library. It looked interesting, but it was one of those books that I sat on for about 4 or 5 months before I actually cracked it open and gave it a listen. The first time I listened to it, I don't think I appreciated how truly powerful the concept was. I looked at it, you know how sometimes when you're not focused or your head's in another space, so it's not the right time to be enjoying a certain thing because you're not going to get the most from it. And that's how I felt the first time I read it. The second time I read it, it was such an amazing, eye opening revelation to grapple with understanding that even though it's fiction, the role that death plays in all of our lives is in some cultures revered and in some cultures a distant, terrifying place that leaves a lot of people unaware, unprepared, um, and unfortunately yearning and longing for something that has gone and won't return. Now, when you flip that on its head, as this book does, and those nearest and dearest to you are not departed, but they are aged, they do get injured. There is a paper trail that there is an expectation to be adhered to when you, as a living citizen of any country, have to adhere to. I hope I wasn't repetitive. This is why I don't freestyle, but I'm doing it this time, book club family, because I love you. And this book is so amazing that I couldn't script how I truly felt about it. I tried 3 different times to script it and read it out, but this book really made me appreciate and respect how I dealt with loss. And I married this understanding as I look at other books that deal with loss. I read the most recent book that Whoopi Goldberg put out, and the way that she celebrated the transition of her family was so impactful because I personally live with longevity. But in understanding that and in looking at this work, you have longevity with the added layer of passing it on generationally because you may be in a place where you don't transition and you don't want to let go. The flip side is maybe your relatives do want to let go of you and they smuggled you across the border, give up about 4 or 5 G's and send you to a place where death is on and popping, as it should be, as it is a part of life. So there's a lot of humor in the concept of, gosh, I really do love you, and cannot imagine life without you, but I kind of want to because you're really at this place where you should have transitioned and you didn't. Gotta go, gotta go. And that helps to lighten the reality of having to really hope for something when you lose someone that is not possible. It's not sustainable. It's not realistic, but you get to play with these concepts. So I hope you enjoyed this book journey as much as I did. I hope that this book was enjoyable for you, and I hope that you had a good time. Um, I am going to end here. Again, I didn't bother to script myself, so I'm going to go ahead and close. But know that I give this book a outstanding rating of a hard five. Ovations, ovations, ovations. It is a book that, as you grow older, will probably mean something different than it did the first time you read it. It's something I would say keep in your library, revisit it every so often, and see where you stand on your relationship with passing and transitioning and what that means to you culturally, religiously, and personally. Now, in the meantime, and in between our time together, let's leave the focus on what books are out there and return with a great read. Now, close this meeting with a bookmark. And until we meet again next time, thank you so much for joining me. And I hope you find something great to share on Discord. See you there.